Hey there. Welcome to Speakers Magazine. I am Dr. Pam Perry, your host. Welcome for joining us today. We're going to be talking about Speakers Magazine, the June issue. So make sure you see that scrolling at the bottom, speakersmagazine.com. If you go to the homepage, you're going to see this young lady, Dr. Rhonda Glover Reese. So let me read you the formal bio before I bring her up. She's a coach, a mentor, keynote, international speaker, best-selling author, and leadership developer. And so Dr. Rhonda Glover Reese retired from the FBI in 2018 after 34 years of service, which she looks 34, right? And when you bring her up, you'll see that. And is now the CEO of Rhonda M. Glover LLC, a coaching mentoring firm that helps and develops law enforcement leaders. I love this. And individuals interested in becoming law enforcement professionals. And this is one of the things I love about having a niche. It's very clear. When you hear someone's niche, you know how to refer them, how to recommend them, how to tell other people about them because it's very niche. She holds a certificate from the World Coach Institute as a career coach and certification from the Youth Coaching Institute as a youth mentor coach and youth leadership coach, focusing on ages 14 to 40. Dr. Reese is also certified to administer the EQI 2.0 and EQ 360 assessments. So I'm sure she'll tell us what that is, which helps individuals become more self aware to manage behavior. She graduated from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and with the BS in criminal justice, right? And later received her MS in management from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. She received a doctorate of education in organizational leadership from Grand Canyon University in Phoenix. She has also co-authored the best-selling book, Dear Fear, and really talking about powerful lessons on living your best life on the other side of fear. Dr. Reese was honored by Success Magazine as one of the 50 women selected as the 2022 Women of Influence. Um, Basically, talking about those who have made contributions and impacted industries and communities and personal and professional lives of others. She's an international speaker, like I said, covering leadership development, mentoring. She's an active shooter, fear, and preparing for your 2.0 pre-retirement, post-retirement. Additionally, she's a proud military wife married to Trenton Reese. Oh my God. So this is a lot. Hi there. Oh my goodness.
I love the clapping.
Hey there. So do you want me to call you Dr. Glover Reese, Dr. Rhonda? Which is the one? Do I say Dr. Rhonda? Do I say Dr. Reese? So when you got the two.
Dr. Reese is fine. Dr.
Dr.
Reese.
Reese. Okay,
Yeah,
so I wasn't sure
it's
if it's
fine.
Glover Reese or because sometimes it's. But I'd like to ask you. So you spent 34 years at the FBI. What
Yes.
made you interested? First of all, because you were in college, so you picked that major, criminal justice. So what was the spark? I think that led you to law enforcement in the first place was well, anybody in the military. I know you're married military, your
Yes.
spouse is military, but what was the spark?
The spark was I used to look at the FBI with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. when I was a little girl.
Ah, okay. I don't
And
remember
so,
that was okay. So that was
oh
a
yeah,
show?
yeah, that was a show. That was a show
Okay.
on TV every Sunday, and I was
Okay.
in front of the TV and I would look at the show, and that's how the FBI was embedded in me. And then
Ah,
one day in high school, I was going through the counselor's office and I see this pamphlet that says FBI on it. I said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become an FBI agent. So that's it. I was introduced to the FBI as a
wow.
child.
Now,
So
see that you've got to say this too, because there weren't a lot of women in the
no,
FBI.
no,
Wasn't a lot of blacks in the
no.
FBI. So now here you are, a black woman. Did your counselor say, "Hey, you shouldn't do that," or was your counselor like, "Yes, you can do that"? What was
Well,
the take?
so what's interesting is that I was with some other students, and I think it was probably cheerleaders because I was a cheerleader in high school. And you know, you going through the halls, and you know, you just kind of wander into the office, and
Hmm.
so it was just in it was like in a bookcase, and that's how I saw it. So I
Oh,
didn't engage with the counselor. I didn't engage. I just knew that that's what I wanted to
elite.
do.
And
So
just leave
at
that.
no time was I ever discouraged to seek a career in the FBI.
That is so good. That is so good.
Mhm.
So you went and you fell in love with it. It probably wasn't like what you saw on TV,
Oh no, no.
but
Mm-mm.
but the interest was there, the spark was there.
Yeah.
So then you go on and you major in criminal justice. Now, a lot of people who major in criminal justice from that standpoint, they do go into law enforcement, but they also can go to law school.
Yes.
They can, I mean, people probably in that same major, they probably were going different ways, but you stayed true to the fact of FBI. This is what I want. You didn't want to go to state trooper, you didn't want to do,
Nothing.
any of that, the Coast Guards or
No.
but
Nothing.
it was FBI. And so
Yes.
tell people a little bit too, Dr. Glover, about Dr. Reese, tell them how strenuous and rigorous it is to 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 pass, to get in, first of all, and then to mindless have a career in it. Tell them how rigorous it is because it's not very easy. Not to say that the other ones are easy, but just tell a little bit about the rigor.
Yeah, the process of getting into the bureau, it can be very, very strenuous, and and you're right, it is rigorous because there are so many different steps. You have to take a test, and you have to have an interview, and you have to pass, and then you have to have a physical, and you have to have a background, and you have to have a polygraph examination. So all of these things you have to do in order to get into the FBI, and you have to pass these steps successfully.
Mm.
So while I was going through my process, in internally, I'm going to be an FBI agent. I'm going to be an FBI agent, and so I was going through the process, just going through the process, and everything was just going smooth.
Were they looking for character flaws to eliminate you? You know, because you're doing a polygraph test. I mean, like, so what is
Now, what's interesting, back when I became an agent, before I became an agent, the Bureau was not requiring that you have a polygraph. So I did not take a polygraph examination until later in my career in the FBI. So back then, that wasn't anything that we had to do as part of the process. That is something that really kind of emerged as a result of incidents that happened in the FBI.
Mhm,
So that was
mhm.
an additional step to the process.
Okay, so they're probably looking for certain incidents that happen because it is a branch of government. Then there's law officials that have policies and they want to put more policies on more policies. It's like, okay, so now you got policies on top of policies. So now you're in the bureau and you are, got your gear on and everything. Tell us some of the experiences that you've had, when people see you coming through the door, or were you always in the office? I mean, when they see you like FBI agent, it's like they're looking at you like, who's this black woman?
Well, you're right. I would get that. And so throughout my career, I've been told that I look younger than what I am. And so when I would show up, there would be a sense of challenge. I mean, I've been challenged before, and I've
Mhm,
had to really have my creds at the ready.
mhm.
And so I kind of expected it because it happened so
All the
many
time.
times, and
Mhm,
so I was always prepared for it. And so the bottom line is that I had to continue to show up decent and in order,
mm,
even though I may not have looked like what people expected me to look like. I had to show up doing my best and knowing my job, knowing exactly what what I needed to do. And so
mhm.
that is how I dealt with that, because it happened.
I'm sure it did.
I work with men from different agencies through wherever I was assigned. I served as case agent and co-case agent. I've been a team leader. And so when you're in those positions of leadership, people are going to look at you a certain
Mhm,
way. And
Mhm.
so you have to recognize that, yeah, people are going to judge, but
Mhm.
you have to show up,
Mhm.
right? You have to show up and do your best and demonstrate your ability,
Mhm.
regardless of what they're thinking or what kind of preconceived notions that they have about you.
I hear
Because
I hear the coach in you coming out. So when you are dealing with your clients, the ones that are aspiring, and then the ones that are probably wanting to level up, I guess you would say,
yes,
that's the
yes,
kind of things that that I saw you just go into like a coaching mode, like telling them like this is what you have to do because you moved up, you went through all the steps, plus you got the
mhm,
certifications, and
yes.
some of the certifications I read. Um, Explain to me. I've heard of them. EQI, is that emotional intelligence?
Emotional intelligence.
Yes,
And
yes.
so that is an assessment that really helps individuals understand who they are. That is the I guess that is the the a layman's explanation of EQ, and
Mm-hmm.
just really understanding how you show up, what you look like when people see you come into the room, and what people hear when you're speaking, and just understanding who you are. And that's what EQ tells you. It helps you understand how people see you, what
Mm-hmm.
how you show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an incredible assessment. I've had it, and and it will open your eyes.
Wow.
And
Because
so
a lot of people say that's IQ, but it's really EQ too. That is really that balances that because you
oh
can
yeah,
have the intelligence but not have the emotional
there you go.
quotient as well. So those are really, really key. So the other thing that I hear that when you're talking about coaching people to become law enforcement professionals. So when you're in the FBI, when you're in the bureau, you're dealing with all different types. So you're dealing with, um, obviously state, local, federal. So you can anyone who wants to be in any type of branch of law enforcement, you're really coaching them for that, coaching
Yes.
them to get in, coaching them if they want to leave, maybe, or how to leave, or if there's trouble. I mean, the police, especially since 2020, have been like really like targeted for so much hate.
Hmm.
Understandable because a lot of them have been doing some very I think Ahmaud Aubrey, I believe its name was, you know, there were things that happened there, and then the police were trying to cover. I mean, so how do you coach people when there's this environment like this going on now? Because they're feeling like I'm really called to do this, but then people quote unquote hate me because they're the law enforcement. They're quote unquote, at this period of time, a
Hmm.
lot of
Yeah.
them may be feeling like, is this a good time? Or, it's a different season.
Yes, it is a different season. And so it's people look at law enforcement with a whole different optic based on different things that have happened in the last few years. And
Mhm,
so it's important for a law enforcement to understand that,
mm,
and law enforcement personnel really be one and in tune with that, and just be ready and position themselves to really think about what are some of the things they can do, because law enforcement personnel, they've got to understand, and I know that there's some that don't, that people look at them a certain way when they are walking, when they're walking into a room, when they're walking down the
mm,
street. People have a feeling, and so law enforcement officers, they have to know that. And some do know it and some don't. And so it's important that they do know it, so they know how to bring anxiety down,
yes, yes.
because the level of anxiety when you're
Mhm,
engaging with law enforcement goes up. And I can
that's it.
tell you, for me, it happens to me.
Mhm, mhm,
I mean, if I remember when I worked in New Jersey. That was my first law enforcement office as an agent, and I was pulled over by a state trooper, a New Jersey state trooper, and I immediately my hands are on the wheel. I'm looking straight, and
Mm-hmm.
and I put my window down a little bit, and I'm just making sure that they see my hands.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I'm a law enforcement. I was a law enforcement officer, so I really knew to do that, and I knew uh, what the men and women in New Jersey, what they saw and what they engaged with. So I really wanted to make sure that that officer, that trooper, knew that I look, see my hands,
Mm-hmm.
see my
Mm-hmm.
hands. So
That is good. And so basically you're helping coach the emotional intelligence part of it, because with anything there's always going to be quote unquote work politics. There are going to be things like that that you have to explain, and then you being a woman and a woman of color, you
hmm
can definitely kind of speak to that as well, because anybody
right.
who wants to succeed in that, they're going to have to go through some barriers. What I find is the most refreshing thing about you, Dr. Reese, is I know if you're an FBI agent, you can't like publicly talk about what you do at work. You can't say anything. I mean, you're just sworn to secrecy for so many things. So talking to the media is not what you would do on a regular.
Oh
So for
no.
you to do what you're doing now, I know you're retired now, but you are. It's almost like you've been media trained, because I can interview other speakers and they are not speaking as well as you're speaking. And I know you haven't done this in your career because you had to like don't talk, don't talk. So now you're out and you're a speaker. So how did that evolve? Because when you were in your career, you could not be a speaker. You cannot be talked, because people want to say, "Well, what'd you do? Who'd you see? What?"
Well,
I know your family at all family reunions. They're probably asking like, "So what's really going on?" And you can't say anything. But now you're a speaker. So what? How did that come about? What sparked that? And what's your main topics that you like to talk about?
well, let me tell you, it has not always been this way. I can tell you that right now. Back when I was a supervisor, I was a supervisory special agent at FBI headquarters, and part of my job was that I had to represent field offices, and I had to do presentations. I had to do case presentations. And
Ooh.
I remember there was a case presentation that I did, and I was sweating all over. My palms were sweating. My hand imprint was on the table, and I knew that I had a problem. I had a problem. And so I had to do something about it. And so I
Mhm.
joined Toastmasters.
Yes,
And
I
so I
love
joined
Toastmasters.
Toastmasters
I've
to
been in a
help
couple of
me,
those. Yes.
yes, to help me get over my fear and my
Mhm.
anxiety of speaking, because I this was part of my job
Right,
that
and
I needed
you weren't
to
really signed you didn't sign up for that part, right? You signed up to be part of the bureau. It's like, so now I'm
yes. So
speaking and
so but
presenting.
but
Yeah.
but but part of my job in doing that is, when you start moving up in the bureau, you are exposed to the media. You and there is training for that. But then at that time, I could it was horrible. It was the worst thing. I mean, my hands are shaking, and it was just
Yeah.
unbelievable. So just fast forward, I intentionally position myself to speak whenever I can. So when
Mm,
people ask me to speak, it doesn't happen as much now because I'm used to doing it, and
mhm,
I enjoy it now
mhm.
because I've gotten past it. But every now and then, but depending upon what the venue is and how many people, I might get a little knot, but I got to work through that. But
Mhm.
back that years ago, oh my gosh, it was horrible. It was
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was
That I
absolutely
just heard,
horrible.
someone this past weekend, they said that, they went to college and they had to take a speech class, speech 101 or whatever it was. He was so afraid, he dropped the class
Wow.
and then consequently dropped out of school and never went back.
Yeah,
And now today he's a speaker, right? He speaks for a living. I was like, you can't run away from your purpose. It's gonna catch up with you. You've
that's
got
right.
something to say. So yeah, so
Absolutely.
it's one of the biggest fears people have of speaking. And
hmm
and it's one of those things where it's Toastmasters is a great group. I mean, they have them in every different cities and things like
Yeah.
that. I mean,
And
even
we had a club at FBI headquarters,
that's what
so
I
that
said.
was
They have them.
perfect.
They have them even in prisons, from what I understand. They have Toastmaster groups in prisons,
Yeah.
so that if someone's in prison, they can be part of a Toastmasters group. I was like, what? It's like they're literally everywhere. It's
Hmm.
amazing.
Hmm.
So now you're speaking. You're on the circuit. You're coaching. So
Yes.
if you're called to speak, can you speak on without saying names? Can you speak on cases that you worked on, during your career or things like that? I'm sure they probably want you. So what are some of the places where you speak and some of the topics that you speak on or people hire you to speak on?
Mostly talk about my dissertation, my research, my work in women excelling and women ascending to leadership
Ah,
roles.
yeah.
Leadership is something that I love. I mean, that's a language that I speak, and
Mhm.
so I love talking about it because during my time in the FBI, I saw a lot of challenges, not just with just other employees, and even things that I needed to do in order to be a better leader. And
Mhm.
so it was important for me to position myself to be the best that I could be. And so I just really, I read a lot. I took a lot of courses, and I went to a lot of conferences.
And
And so I
PhD
invested in
way
me.
up.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I invested in me. I invested because look, I'm worth it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's that look. Sometimes I had to let those shoes go, let that bag go, let that dress go. I put money into me, and so I really attended different conferences and met different
Mhm.
people, and just really learned more about leadership and how I can be a better leader. And I did see some employees struggle, and some of them they had challenges. They were in their own way, and then they weren't
Mhm.
taking ownership, and they weren't being accountable to their actions. And so it was really important for me to kind of help them through that, and
Mhm.
help them
Mhm.
see and do what I do, anything that I could do to kind of help them through that, to help them understand, and coach and mentor. And so I know that is coaching and mentor, that's my superpower.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and I really realized my superpower when there were three women, Black females in the FBI, that were promoted to supervisor. And I knew at that time that that's what God wanted me to do.
That
It
is good.
wasn't about me moving up, because I tried. I tried to move up into the senior executive service, which is one of the highest ranking that you can go into the federal government. I tried, but it didn't happen for me. It did not happen for me. But when those women, when they ascended to leadership roles, I knew I had to get up from my desk. I went to the restroom, and I just bawled, because I
Mm.
knew, I'm like, okay, God, I get it. It
Mhm.
wasn't about me getting there. It was about getting others there.
Yes, from
And
coaching and
so,
mentoring. Yeah. And that
exactly.
really is when people think about leadership, it really is about empowering others and having that chip of empathy
Hmm.
always. And that's
Yeah.
not easy to have. And that's one of the things where probably why you had the certifications of the EQ, because that's really, really key. Understanding, listening, leadership is about empowering other people, but really understanding the people to empower them and knowing
Exactly.
the way that, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast
Yeah. You
because
got to
that,
love people. As a leader, you got
yeah,
to love people. If you don't love people, you don't like engaging with people, you do not need to be in leadership. That's
hmm
it. That's
hmm
it. Because different people get into leadership for different reasons. And
right.
some of it is financial. And from where I sit, not a good reason. It's
No,
not about the money. It's about people. It's about loving people. It's about helping people.
understanding them,
Yeah.
understanding them. And
Yes.
everybody has different languages. There was that whole book about people have different love languages, and you were saying, like, so everybody has a different way where they have to understand the other person. Like, Maybe a person, one of the love languages is gifts.
Mhm.
So you have to give someone a gift. Maybe another person is like spend time. Maybe another person is words of affirmation. And if
Mhm.
you're going to always try to befriend or really become close to someone by giving them words of affirmation, but really they really would appreciate a gift, and you can't understand because you want to give words of affirmation, but they really want a gift.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's just really understanding that sort of thing. And I didn't really understand different ways people understood things until like late in my 30s.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh, okay. So people have different ways that they have to communicate. And that's really the whole part of leadership. So doing leadership training, probably you do communications training.
No, I don't do communications training. I do leadership training. I've done active shooter training. I talk about fear. I talk about coaching and mentoring. That's my lane. That's
So the
my,
active shooter training, that is, I won't say that's of recent, but over the last few years, because so many schools have had so many active shootings there, so many shootings there. So
yeah,
that's probably really, I won't say popular, but it's
it's
more.
needed
Yeah.
because what's interesting, so my husband and I, we do active shooter training for churches.
Oh,
And
yeah. We had to do
so,
that. That happened a
yeah,
few
because there
times.
there's some aspects of businesses that don't believe that's anything that they need.
Hmm.
And so you have to know what are you going to do, and you have to, if there's an active shooter, what are you going to do? And see, there are things that that you can learn
And
to do in order to save yourself, to save others,
mm,
and minimize damage.
mhm. Yeah. That is one of the things that I think is probably a really, really thing that who would have thought that when you retired, that's one of the things that you've got to do active shooter training at churches. Like
Hmm.
it's just like I said, it's a whole nother season, a whole nother time that we're
Oh
living
yeah,
in now. And
absolutely.
it's a very, very needed time. So one of the things that I just want to say as well is that Success Magazine, Woman of Influence. When that happened, give me the moment of when that was awarded. Did you get an email? You get a phone call? Did
Yeah, you
somebody
get an
text you?
email,
Okay.
you get publication, you get a certificate, you get all kinds of cool stuff. So
I love
it was
Success
nice.
Magazine. I love Success Magazine. I mean, I've probably been read. I probably say I'm a magazine person, obviously, so I love magazines. So that's one of my favorite. And I probably have some magazines here, probably 10 years old, but I didn't really see a lot of like that category that you won,
Hmm.
over the last, I think this probably the last 5 years or so. I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
it's the recent. But congratulations on that, because that's a big deal. That is a
Yeah,
big deal.
thank you.
And basically, to be in Success Magazine is like the thing. I want to say at one point in time, Success Magazine used to have magazines and then they would have CDs in them. That's how long ago I was reading it, right? And they had these little CDs in the magazine that you would take them out every month, and basically the magazine would be interviews with the people who were in the magazine.
Wow,
And
nice.
that's kinda like where the idea for Speakers Magazine came about. It's like,
Hmm.
so the people in the pages become alive, and so
Hmm.
you actually hear them, and you can't put everything in the magazine, so you do the CD as a companion. So, yeah, so the congratulations on that. So, RhondaMGlover.com, what will people find when they go there?
Oh, they're gonna find me. They're gonna see see what I can do if they're interested in coaching and mentoring. So while I do focus on law enforcement personnel, I am a coach,
Mhm, mhm.
right? First and
Yeah,
foremost. So I can
yeah,
coach anything, but my focus is on law enforcement and
yeah.
really positioning those in leadership and helping those that are interested in a law enforcement career, helping them
Mhm.
really navigate and just
Yes.
get themselves prepared for
Yes.
that.
Yeah, that is good. So they can go to Rhonda M. Glover. I love that niche because it's so needed. I don't know
Mhm.
of anyone. And I always tell people that if you can niche down to really one thing and you're really good at that, you're the go-to for that. But of course, people are going to say, but can you do this? Of course, they'll know because you've done this well that you could do other things well.
Mhm,
But if
mhm.
you just start out so broad, then no one knows how to even approach you or recommend you. So I love that niche. So RhondaMGlover.com. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
on Speakers Magazine and in the June issue, which you'll be getting soon. You'll be getting your copies as well. And so when you have your books, signings, or things like that, or wherever you're speaking, you can take them with you or that kind of thing. And then also too, you can use the magazine as like a mini speaker sheet, so to speak.
Mhm,
So a lot of
mhm,
times when I'm pitching people to meeting planners or to media, I'll take your page and I'll just say, hey, this person would be a good fit, because now I have your actual page and I can send it to them. So it's just your picture, it's your bio, it's your all your information there. So you use it that way too when you're pitching. So it's
Yeah, I know. Yeah, leadership is my thing. Especially after getting my doctorate, because leadership is leadership. Doesn't
mhm.
matter what
What
what.
field? Yeah.
Right. It's just so I love talking about leadership and just sharing my story and really, kind of mixing it up and blending it up and just really having that good conversation about leadership and the importance of it in industries
Mhm,
throughout.
mhm. It is. It's about empowerment, and it really is. And more women are moving up in the C-suites. There's been so many Fortune 500 companies. I'm in Detroit, so Mary Barra from General Motors, she's here. I mean, so leadership for women is a really big deal, and
Hmm.
to teach it so that more women can get it is really, really important.
Yeah,
So
and
I love it.
but they gotta get ready for it,
Yes, yes. You just
right?
can't just show up and just like,
You
oh, I'm
just
ready
can't
to
just go.
lead.
You
Mm-mm.
gotta get ready for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you, Dr. Rhonda, and I will talk with you later.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
All righty. So for more information, make sure you go to rhondamglover.com. There's more information on coaching and leadership, mentoring. Sometimes you can just be one mentor away from your next level. So make sure that you invest in that. And you heard Dr. Rhonda say that she was definitely investing in herself along the way. So now she's on the way of giving back. So with that, I am Pam Perry. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share and do all the things there so that we can get the word out about our fabulous speakers that we have. So make sure you go to speakersmagazine.com, look at all the magazines, read the magazine, share it, subscribe. With that, I'm Pam Perry and I'm out. Take care. Thanks for watching.